Hello everyone. I'm back with Fiona. It's been a few months since we did our last conversation. We are gonna do something slightly different today. So I've actually challenged Fiona to a competition. We are hopefully today gonna give you guys some help on how to get your 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. So that's the kind of
Oh,
theme. Right. So basically what me and Fiona we've both came up with. Now I've got 5. How many have you got?
one, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
Right. So Fiona's got 7. So we'll draw them out. We'll just go one at a time. Basically, what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to give you guys tips on how to get your 5 fruit and veg a day. And I want to have tips that Fiona hasn't thought of. If Fiona wants to have tips that I haven't thought of. If Fiona says something and I have something that's like 90% similar, we'll call that a draw, right? But if she has something that I don't have, she gets a point. And if I have something that she doesn't have, I get a point, and then we'll see who wins at the end. And she was just saying to me, she can't be beaten by a lowly personal trainer with her like and she was like, that's
That you
that I
added
did
in the
I
adjective. I
yeah.
never said lowly personal trainer. I said just said personal trainer.
I know, but it's
I'm gonna keep my own count here, James. I don't trust
yeah,
you.
better. It's better for the drama if I'm the lowly personal trainer and you're the lordy dietitian. Right. So, um, do you want to so you've got 7, right? I've only got 5, right? I might try and make up another. Well, I stopped at 5 because I thought that'd be enough. But let's see if I can think of
Well,
6 and 7.
yeah, I'm
Uh,
also not sure if maybe my seven's more of a kind of brain dump of different things. I'm not being
okay.
tricky, James. I'm feeling the pressure here.
Okay, right. Well, you gotta play your cards right here. So right, so this is let's go with you first. We'll see whether I've got it or whether I don't, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, just for
Yeah.
3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll kind of expand on it, and then we'll go on to the next one. Right, so you go first.
Okay, well, my first one isn't necessarily about how to get more fruit and veg.
Right,
It's also it's a fact of you
good
need to
start.
plan. You need to have a plan in place.
Oh, okay, right, okay, right, good.
You need to have a plan, no matter what it
Yeah,
is. And I think you'll feel the same in terms of all your
yeah,
nutrition. If you don't plan it, it doesn't happen. Nutrition,
right. Well,
exercise.
yeah. So you get a point for that because I just thought that was so obvious. I didn't write it down, and that's maybe the problem. Having a plan. So why does having a plan help?
Well, having a plan helps on a number of levels. First of all, I'm going to say I'm actually really surprised the amount of people that come to work with me that don't have a plan, that don't plan their meals. Not even in the sense of looking if you've got particular health goals, but just in terms of family life, they just
Yeah,
don't plan. They literally just go to the supermarket every
yeah,
single night.
yeah,
So planning's good because it actually reduces the brain drain. So you think of it once in the week. You don't have to keep thinking about it every single day,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
important. But also it helps you in terms of making sure that you're getting. So for example, you're getting your 5 portions of fruit and veg. You can plan that out. You're getting a good variety. You're getting your 2 oily fishes. You're getting your 2 portions of red meat in the week. It lets you
yeah,
look at your diet overall, and it also saves money because I'm quite sure we've all gone to the shop to get a couple of things and then succumb to promotions, deals, seeing stuff, whatever. The more often you go
yeah,
to the shops, that's what they want you to do. They want you to spend money there. They
yeah.
don't want you just to go and get your, lettuce and tomatoes and cucumber for your salad. They want you to buy all the other stuff that's there as well.
Yeah. So what having a plan does is it allows you to kind of keep the blinkers on in terms of what you're trying to do. It's like don't go to do your food shopping when you're hungry because the same thing, you'll just get all like you'll succumb to the advertising and the bright colors and the marketing and even like where they place stuff in a supermarket is all designed to get you to spend more money because they're in to make it for a profit. So that's a really good one. Starting to get that health promoting dietary pattern that we're trying to get people to have nowadays. And yeah, well, you said you were surprised how many people come to you and they don't have a plan, but I would say that's the exact reason they're coming to you is they don't know what to do. So that's yeah.
I know, yeah, you're right in terms of health conditions, but actually when you're speaking to them and you're saying, so do you plan your weekly meals? They'll say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually,
Yeah.
that always surprises me, especially, if you've got a job, you've got kids, and, if you're going to the shop every night on the way home when you're hungry, or the other thing as well is you don't even get to the shops, you phone something, stop at takeaway, whatever, because everybody's hungry and there's no plan there of what you're going to be having.
Yeah, it's so easy because if you don't plan and then immediacy becomes the issue, you're hungry now, and literally with smartphones nowadays, you can press your phone like 7 times, and there's going to be a pizza on the way to your house. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
yeah, right. So you win that one. So that's 1 point to you. Okay, I'll go next. Now, this one's kind of a planning thing,
Okay.
but if you want to get 5 portions of fruit and veg a day, aim to get 7 a day. So plan for 7. So this is kind of like branching off from yours. And that means even if you fall a little bit short of that, you're still going to get your 4 portions of fruit and veg. Now, that will require some planning. It will require for you to say, right, well, I'm going to have this for breakfast and this for lunch and then this for dinner and maybe a snack. And then you go, right, so I've eat all that. That's me aiming for 7. I've got 7 portions, but things go wrong during the day, meetings interrupt food times, things can. So if you can aim for 7 and then you'll land in 5, even though you've not been perfect. Now, that might not suit someone who is okay with who doesn't react well to failure. If you're okay with that, then this is probably a good strategy for you. But if you're the type of person who, oh no, I haven't got my 7, and then that's the day's a write-off, and then it's just chocolate and biscuits and crisps after that. That's maybe not a good strategy for you. But if you're the type of person who goes, right, aim for 7, got 4 today, good. That's progress. If that's the type of thinking that you have behind that, then this is maybe a good strategy for you. Do you get anything similar to that?
No, haven't got anything
No.
like that, but I think you
Yeah.
put a really good point there, is that doesn't that
One
doesn't work
each.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Because there are some people that will absolutely fixate on that. People that have the all or nothing mindset, they, they're going to struggle with that. They're
Yeah.
going to struggle with that. So, if you're realistically having 2 portions a day, then, week 1
Yeah.
up it to 3.
Mhm,
Don't
mhm.
don't set yourself up to fail. At the
Yeah.
end of the
Yeah.
day, it's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah. And that's where having because I don't give that tip to everyone, but having an understanding of the person that you're coaching and the client that you're working with. And quite often, if I'm working with a client and it comes to nutrition, I've already been personal training them for a number of months, like at least 2 or 3. So we've developed a bit of a relationship, and I can start to get an idea of what their psyche is around perfectionism. How do they handle failure? How do they want to set up their life from going, and we can make those decisions. Right, you go next. So that's 1 each.
Okie doke. Remember, it doesn't always have to be fresh. It can be tinned, frozen, or dried as well, and
Oh,
that's
I've
really
got I've
important.
got that. I've got that. That's a that's a that's a wash.
And that's a common.
I've got
That's a common
yeah.
one. I think that's really important because I'm going to be honest with you. Like this week, my daughter isn't at home.
Yeah.
She's away in Rome with her dad, and my veg intake's pretty rubbish if I didn't have frozen veg that I can literally just put into a pan with whatever I'm cooking, or stick it in. I'm super lazy. Like if I'm having rice, I'll stick the frozen veg in with the rice.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'm all about easiness, so that's really important. You can stick it in. You can get frozen fruit to put in your overnight oats, and also it's cheaper as well. Do you know? They're cheaper and
See,
they're just as nutritious. In fact, the argument is they're actually more nutritious because they're frozen. They're not sitting on shelves.
it also reduces waste,
Yep.
because how many times a year do you buy a head of lettuce and half of it gets chucked out, or an avocado, or bell peppers, or like these like I don't know how well an avocado. I mean, I suppose you can get frozen avocado because people put it in smoothies and things, but it reduces your waste
Yeah.
so much. It's that, like, obviously if you like, as long as you've got a freezer, then that's all right. Frozen fruit and veg is a really really good tip. Um, Tinned as well. I didn't have the tin bit in it, but well, I think that's similar enough. We can call that one a draw.
Okay.
Uh, Automatically for my breakfast, I usually have some sort of porridge, or oatmeal, as the Americans will call it. Because in it, as I know, there's some people, Americans, that watch the podcast or listen to the podcast. So I'll cook my porridge, and I'll put, just when it's still piping hot, I'll put frozen berries in it. One, it cools the porridge down so I can actually eat it, and two, like the berries just kind of defrost from the heat, and then you're ready to go, and you can just eat it like straight away. And that's usually like two portions of fruit straight off the bat. That's me. 40% of my intake is done. So still one each. Right, number four, food you can carry. Okay, so things that are their own, that don't require any processing. So, like an orange or a tangerine, or a banana or an apple, things that you can literally just take out your packed lunchbox and just eat, peel them, or just eat them straight away. Uh, they're just really good, convenient uh, options for people to have, especially if you're out at an office, or you're a builder who sits on a plank and has their lunch. Like, so things like to eat a watermelon, you have a cutting board and a knife, and like all these things. So things that are just super easy for you to be able to use. Have you got anything like that?
I've got something similar, which is make it
Right.
easy for your. It's kind of sort
Ah,
of like it's make it easy for yourself.
yeah,
Um, which is, if you know that you're like, for example, that watermelon, it can be the tastiest watermelon in the world, but if you know
yeah,
you ain't gonna chop it up, then there's no
yeah,
point. You can go and buy watermelon that's already chopped up.
yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It would
just make it easy.
it would be like it would be like if someone came to me for personal training and I said, "What don't you like?" And they said, "I don't like doing bench press." And then I said, "Oh well, your program's going to have bench press in it, so like you might as well get used to it." What's going to happen? They're just not going to do they're not going to do the bench press.
The other thing I was just going to add in there, James, as well, on a kind of slightly similar, different note, is you'll see in supermarkets they've got things like diced onions and diced peppers and diced mushrooms. And whilst there's there's people watching this thinking how ridiculous people buying that, if that is the difference between you making your meal or stopping at the Golden Arches on the way home,
Yeah,
it's going to be far by the better option. So be realistic about
yeah,
what you're going to do, and it's also great there for people that are struggling. There are some people that struggle to chop things up, because of manual
yeah, yeah,
dexterity and things like that. Those
yeah.
those things are also there for really good reasons
Yeah, so
as well.
somebody who perhaps uh, has some sort of neurological disease, and they're really restricted on how dexterous they can be with their hands, and they're trying to maintain as much of an independent living
Yeah,
lifestyle as they can. Chopped veg is absolutely fantastic, and and as we said, it's like so much cheaper because it's all it's all the ugly bits of fruit and veg that they can't actually sell. That's what gets chopped up. Like that's why when you buy a bag of frozen peppers, it's all weird sized bits. It's not just lovely cut slices of bell pepper. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is a really good point. And people who live by themselves, like
Yeah.
actually, if you bought like a tray of mushrooms, that's enough to that's 3 or 4 portions of mushrooms. It's not you're going to use half of that, and then the rest of it's going to sit in the fridge for a week, and then you're going to chuck it away. Well, we've got hens, so like our food waste, like from that goes to the council, never actually goes to the council. My dad just takes it and scatters it on the field, and all the hens eat all the food waste, which can lead to some rather interesting coloured egg yolks if they have something that's like got a bit of a weird, like you can get like really really dark orange egg yolks, or you can get quite light coloured ones. But number 5, round 5, we're at 3 points each.
Okay.
You want to go for your next one?
Hello, folks. So I'm currently editing this video. I thought I'd just jump on here and ask you to do a couple of things for me. One, don't forget to subscribe. Subscribing to the channel really helps me get this good information out to more people. And secondly, I have a free Facebook group where you can join, and videos get posted like this, Q&A videos, all the good stuff that comes from being that kind of, it's almost like a forum, really. So if you want to join that, the link will be below in the description. Hope you're having a good day. Here's the rest of the video.
I know that you'd spoken about having fruit at your breakfast, but in my experience is actually quite a lot of people they actually lack fruit and veg at every meal. And you need to look at doing that to plan it into every single meal. There's lots of people don't tend to think about having a well balanced breakfast with carbs, protein, and fibre.
Yeah. It's I mean, yeah. So I've got start with poo for breakfast. So I think we cancel each other out on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you've said to me before, there's a lot of emphasis on protein, and people need to eat more protein. And I think especially people who are going to the gym and are lifting weights, they're very conscious of the protein, but the fiber that you get from fruit and vegetables actually, there's research to say that that's actually an antidepressant in some factors. For some people, obviously, some people will, with all these things, there's a bell curve, and there'll be some people who can handle less or can have less fiber and have absolutely no ill effects of it. But then there's people who need more fiber to actually kind of feel quote unquote normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's kind of like, so if you are struggling with mental health, actually one of the good places to look at is your diet. And it's kind of, it kind of is like a chicken or an egg type thing. Is like, are you not eating well because of your depression, or is your depression coming on, or are those feelings of anxiety coming on because you're not looking after yourself? And I would say it's probably like it's an interplay in between both of them. People get caught in this vicious cycle where for a period of time they're under higher stress, they are lacking the time to sufficiently plan their meals, and all these factors mean they get further and further away from a health promoting dietary pattern, and then all of a sudden all these symptoms start to come up. Or not all of a sudden, because depression doesn't just come on like that, but like slowly this kind of spectre of depression starts to creep in, and then all of a sudden that makes them feel worse, and then that makes them step even further away from that dietary pattern, and it just ends up being this vicious cycle where they get lower and lower and lower, and eventually they're at the point where they're in their GP's office saying, I need a pill, I need some sort of medication to help me get out of this situation, which is obviously those things are great and sometimes they're completely necessary, but they could have stopped the situation from happening if they had been educated better on what they can do with their own dietary pattern in terms of fruits and vegetables, and getting that fiber and having a balanced meal every time they eat, basically. But yeah, and then so what do you have any comments you want to make on that?
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, what you've said is completely true. And actually, we now know, we've got the gut microbiome, and we now know the importance of that. And that's probably been undoubtedly the biggest change that I've seen in my 25-year career, is an understanding about that. That 80% of the body's serotonin is made in the gut. Now, that serotonin cannot cross into your brain the way it would if you were taking chemical serotonin, but it does have a massive impact. And by having a wide variety, and I'm not going to give myself away for that one, but having a wide variety in our diet, lots of different fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, pulses, all these things are super important, so that you will have a different gut microbiome to what I have. People within your family will have something kind of similar. If you live with someone, they have a similar microbiome, but the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses that are meant to be there, that they're good there. That what they do is they get the fiber and they break it down and they produce short-chain fatty acids, which keeps the gut nice and healthy, and also keeps you nice and healthy. And it's super important.
The amount of kind of my relatives that I see that don't really, they have their meat and their their meat and their potatoes, but as we like, potatoes are great, really good source of carbohydrates, good source of fiber, but they're not quite giving you that full. There's a reason they don't count as one of your 5 a day, unless that's changed recently. The yeah, so like they're great. Have potatoes, but have your peas and your carrots and your green beans with your potatoes and your roast chicken or whatever you're having, which is like, I mean, uh, I'm very lucky that my partner just makes sure that everything we have has fruits and vegetables in it, and comes up with unique and interesting ways to hide them from the children, so they can so they make sure that they get the fruits and vegetables, because really, like, if it's a whole bit of pepper, Rory's just like, I'm not eating that. Like the whole dish, the whole plate just gets pushed to the side and said, I'm not eating that. Where he's got that from, I don't know. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to emphasize colour in your plate as well.
right. So we're at 4 each. I've got one, and I don't think you're gonna have this one.
Okay.
So right. So this is my last one on my list.
Okay.
And it's
Save the best to last, James.
Well, hopefully. It's buy seasonally. One, you buy seasonally. One, you're going to get usually locally sourced fruit and vegetables. So we're all like, everyone's very conscious about their carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different conversation, or whether anyone should really be concerned about that. But I know people are. So if you can buy locally, it means that the stuff that's in your area. So, for example, root vegetables in October time, kind of fall or autumn time, as they would call it. Spring vegetables, so having your lettuces and your new potatoes and stuff during the springtime. And then obviously, like, there's like, well, take potatoes for example. You get potatoes all the way from April till end of September. There's all different types of varieties that are designed, like, have been literally engineered that way to give us potatoes for more than half the year, so that they are a staple of our diet. So that kind of thing. Chard, it comes in at a particular time of year. Like that's a fantastic food. Beetroot comes in at a particular time. Brussels sprouts come in at a particular time of year. That's why we get them at Christmas. Soft fruit, so like berries, peaches, apples, pears, all these things come in at a particular time of year. So if you can buy seasonally, It means your plate is going to be consistently filled with different types of food because you'll not stick to the same thing all year, and that's really good for, like you said, really good for your gut microbiome, for giving a good variety of different sources of fiber and vitamins and minerals. Yeah, and you have a more interesting diet in terms of that, because like, oh, like what's coming into season this month? What kind of recipes can I make with that? What interesting things can I do with, oh, it's coming up to October time, beetroot is ready to be harvested. Can I pickle some to save for later? Can I do all these things? So did you have here, and before ever, and what everyone really wants to know is, did you have that one?
Yeah, I did.
Ah, damn it. Okay. Oh, okay. So we've only had one like scoring round each, and then we've drawn everything. So if you what anything else you want to add about kind of buying seasonally?
Yeah, so I would say this is maybe slightly gamifying it. Okay.
Yeah.
But eat a rainbow. So if you've got someone
Uh-huh.
that's quite competitive, you know, think of a rainbow on your day, and what could you have that fits in each of the categories. And that also helps increase the diversity in your diet. So another easy thing to do is, if your recipe calls for peppers, then add in red peppers, yellow peppers, and green peppers. You don't need to use the whole one, but add in different colours, and that also increases the variety in your diet and helps feed your gut microbiome with diversity as well.
Yep.
So I've got that one.
Right. Right. So it's a draw, and you've still got two more. So I think you win without even having to. It's like, what is it? You've won without even having to play your last two cards. So what was the last two that you, or the two more that you had?
Well,
Or have I said them
when
already?
I'm looking at it, they're quite similar. One was
Yeah.
chop it up in advance. So like if your veggies and stuff, you know, especially if there's anything you can prep beforehand. So if you can do stuff the night before, or do stuff in the morning, although most people mornings are manically busy anyway, but you know, prep in advance. And also the frozen veg handfuls, you know, again, I've got guinea pigs, so spinach isn't wasted in this house, but spinach is one. You can't ever buy a little bit of spinach, you have to buy a big bag of it.
Yeah.
Frozen spinach is amazing not for your salad, I'm not suggesting that, because that would just be rotten, but you know, putting it in curries or stews or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The little blocks of frozen spinach are really handy. Or if you're having like a tuna sandwich, you could, if you've got frozen sweet corn, handful of frozen sweet corn in the microwave, defrost it, whack it in your tuna, off you go.
I don't understand sweet corn, because it never actually, it doesn't ever seem to get digested. It just comes out exactly the way it went in. And I'm just like, what's the point? I'm just like, I'm just like, okay, like,
thanks for sharing that with us, James.
you were just taking up space. You're useless. But like, maybe it's just bit of it. I don't know, but yeah. Sweet corn does seem to be fairly hard to digest, but and maybe I'm getting some of it. Obviously, it's not all coming out the other end, but my apologies for being vulgar there. That was yeah. So, and what was your the very last one?
I think I've given you them all.
That was that the two. That was the two.
Yeah,
Right, that's
yeah.
great. I mean, yeah, hiding. Like, I have a guy that I went to uni with, and I'm gonna send him this clip. He's 35 years old, and he refuses to eat vegetables. How he's still alive, I don't know. Like, he must just. I think he eats fruit. He likes fruit, but I think he just, like, every year we go for like a dinner from like all my uni pals that I play basketball with, and he will never eat his vegetables. He'll always just get, like, it can be the most like roasted parsnips and carrots and stuff and beetroot, and it's like, it's delicious, and I'm just like, well, I'll eat it. Just put it on my plate, and I'll eat it. But how he's alive, I don't know. So for him, a good strategy might be to hide the vegetables in other things so he doesn't even notice they're there. And I kind of touched on that when I was talking about the kids, like like finding ways to get fruits and vegetables in to the children. But yeah, so having the ability to disguise things as other things. Now, you don't want to get to the point where you're just turning a vegetable which is relatively, you want it to be not so processed that it's so far away that it's just uh, the the thought of a vegetable is all that remains and what you've actually produced. It needs to, like, basically the more processed something gets, the further it's going to get away from having the kind of nutrients and the vitamins and things that were in it from the start. But there's nothing wrong with a little bit of processing. I mean, that's what things like pickling things are. That's processing. Preserving things. That's processing. Everyone seems to think that processed equals bad nowadays, but it certainly doesn't, and certainly it's not a one size fits all. Things like turning potatoes into mashed potatoes, processing, like everything is processed to some unless you've literally just walked out and just taken whatever it is straight out the ground or straight off a tree, it's going to be processed in some form or another. So yeah. But
I think that's a valid point you made, James, and I'm sure we could talk about ultra processed foods, but till the cows come home. But actually, one of the things that we now know from research is that it's not necessarily the ultra processed foods that are the problem. It's the diets that are made up exclusively of ultra processed foods. So they tend to be lacking in fruit and vegetables. Those people tend to not being active and exercising. They tend to have other unhealthy habits like smoking, drinking excess alcohol, these sorts of things. But then there's also a bigger socioeconomic picture for that as well, of why some people can't afford to buy. We know, if you shop every week, that fresh fruit and vegetables is expensive if you've got a big family to feed. You've got a family to feed, full stop. And also the flip side of that is we're not eating breakfast cereals the way that we once were. And breakfast cereals are great because they're fortified with vitamins, B vitamins, with calcium, with iron. They're actually quite an important part of a diet, but because you've been vilified to think that they're really rubbish, and there is, I wouldn't be recommending anyone's having Crunchy Nut Honey Loops or whatever every day, but things like, bran flakes and Weetabix and these kind of more whole grain cereals are perfectly acceptable as part of an everyday diet.
There's so much conflicting information out there that it's incredibly hard to expect anyone who doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about what they're eating to really feel like, because at any point, any food you choose, there'll be someone saying, "Oh, you shouldn't eat that food." Like there'll be someone saying, "Oh, you shouldn't eat eggs. Oh, you shouldn't eat salmon. You shouldn't eat this because of like X, Y, and Z." And basically, when someone's fear is putting fear mongering around foods, you got to be really careful. That's it, and it's basically they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to indoctrinate you in some sort of ideological way of thinking, and whether that's turning you into a carnivore diet person or the on one side of the spectrum or the other side of the spectrum, turning you into a vegan. And those are fine if that's what you want to do. Whether they are the most health promoting thing that you could do is not really up for debate. Purely carnivore diet or a purely veganism diet. Okay, I think people need to have a balanced, well-rounded diet with plenty of protein, plenty of fiber, good sources of fruits and vegetables, and limit the amount of processed food they have to. I try and aim for like 20% with my clients. I think that's a good way because then that allows them the freedom to have a McDonald's if they want to. And I'm not telling them to have a McDonald's. I'm saying this is a buffer we can have so that you don't feel incredibly restricted. Because guess what? When you say someone you cannot do that or you cannot have that, the urge for that person, or for the majority of people, some people can just say, all right, okay, that's fine. But I reckon that's probably less than 1 in 50 people can do that. So 98% of the population, if you tell them they can't do something, if they can't have alcohol, if they can't have chocolate, it becomes a fixation for them. And then over time, the urge to have that just grows and grows and grows and grows. And eventually it's like a bubble and it'll pop. And then they'll just have way more chocolate than they would have had if you just said, yeah, you could have a double. You can have a double decker. Double decker is one of my decker is one of my favorites.
Oh really? Oh no, I would waste.
Yeah, you don't like a double decker.
Double decker, James.
Oh, love it. Love it.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, but it's not just food. Scarcity leads to obsession. We only have to look at, the recent storm that we had, that it was going to be one day, and people went out and just decimated the supermarkets. Now, the fact is, most of them lost their electricity, so I don't know what happened to all that food. Yeah. And also, during COVID, how fixated were we on toilet paper and, because of what we'd heard about COVID causing diarrhea and things like that. So it's not just food, it's a human nature thing about the scarcity, and thinking you're not going to be getting stuff. Yeah.
And then you see and especially, I think it might be okay if someone said to you, right, you're not allowed this thing, and then in your life, if you never came across that thing ever again, you'd probably be okay. But what happens is someone decides they're gonna, and this is usually self-imposed, which is even like another bag of cats. Like, people is self-imposing these ridiculous and strict restrictions on their own lifestyle. It's not even someone else that's telling you to do it. If you said to yourself, right, I'm never going to have McDonald's again, and then you went out and lived in the wilderness, that's fine. Like, because you're never going to see those golden arches ever again. But I know for a fact, like when I was working in Clydebank, every time I drove home, there was the McDonald's at the Belfield interchange outside Kilmarnock, and I could just quite easily have just went, oh, every time I could have, and I thought about it every time. But what eventually I learned was the decision I'm making by not going into McDonald's is informed by the decision that I want to have I have a home cooked meal for me waiting at home. I have a better choice waiting at home. It wasn't that I was going home to nothing and I was having to, if I was a single guy and I had no dinner prepared at home and I didn't have a partner doing that kind of things at home, then I think I probably would have given into the temptation a lot easier, but I had a better option. And all these things we've just talked about there are about giving yourself, being prepared, having meals that work at certain times of year in terms of seasonally, meal prepping, having frozen fruit, frozen veg, things. Just make it easy for yourself to have that positive nutritional environment where it's not going to be just pure willpower that's getting you through. Because guess what? Your willpower is like anything; it gets fatigued. And as you go through the day, your willpower decreases and decreases and decreases. So you want to actually have the ability to take decisions away and just be on like autopilot with your food and your diet. And that's the people who are successful in terms of going from a not so great place with their nutrition to a better place with their nutrition. That's the skills that they learn to bridge the gap. So they're not waking up first thing in the morning saying, "Oh, what am I going to have for breakfast today?" That's a decision they've got to make. And then they've got to make 3 or 4 more decisions. They start work and they've got to make 3 or 4 more decisions. And then it gets to lunchtime and they've had a meeting run late, and it's 1 o'clock and they're like, oh, I've got so much work to do, especially if you're working from home, right? Uber Eats, it'll be to my door, and then I can keep working. Whereas if you're prepared and you've got a schedule and you know what you're doing with that, it's not that you have to stick to that every time. Getting an Uber Eats every now and again is fine, but if you're doing that most of the time, one, you're probably spending like they could probably get 2 or 3 sessions with you a month for what they're spending on their lunch. You know what I mean? Like, and or they could probably like train with me for like 3 months what they spend on 1 month with food. So like that kind of getting people to have that thought process, and they'll just do what they've always done until someone points out to them, okay, you can do something different. And they might even not necessarily see it as a problem. Eventually it will be. And I know you've got your bugbear about kind of meal prep services and things like that. Yeah. And I did say at the start of this, we were going to keep this short, and we're up at like 45 minutes already. So, right. So I think we'll stop it there. Thanks. That was quite. I enjoyed that. That was quite. Hopefully, people at home enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I'll put your website details down below.
thank you.
And yeah, we'll do this again. We'll have something else to. You can come up with it next time. You can come up with the format next time and be as you can be as creative as you like. Okay. Right. Thanks, Fiona.
Thanks. Bye-bye, James.